Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraful anbiya wa mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibina al-Mustafa. Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa salam. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin. Wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, we'd like to welcome you all to tonight's broadcast of the Black Imams Roundtable. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much for giving us this opportunity to come to you tonight and with a nice topic, inshallah ta'ala. We thank you all in advance for those who are on now and those joining. We thank you for, taking time out of your precious schedules and, to listen to us, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all immensely and raise your rank. Amin. Before we get started, as we request, please like and share. Okay, so before we get started, we got another star in the audience. When we on stage, we recognize the great stars in the audience. So shout out to Miss Joanne. Miss Joanne is here. Everybody, yeah. Miss Joanne, here's the flowers, some makeshift flowers I'm throwing out to you. Welcome. Alhamdulillah. So please be sure to like and share this on your platforms, as that helps us to get more, get our message out and share our message with more people, inshallah. And also, please remember to pay that cover fee, drop that bread. I don't know if you can see that, but, we know just talk it, we walk it, all right? I mean, I'm doing the bare minimum, but I'm doing it, So I know some of you who have, preceded me in righteousness and generosity. You could do more. You could drop 20. You could do 3 for 1. You can cover 5 people. Whatever you can do, inshallah, give what you can. Alhamdulillah. Again, we appreciate all of you tuning in. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this a sincere effort and extract from it a lot of benefit. I mean, all right, so tonight's topic is we're talking about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which his birthday was just observed on yesterday, and he's actually born on January the 15th of 1929. And this was, we were having a discussion about this prior. Sometimes we have discussions about the topics that we want to, come up with or we want to discuss on the show. So we came up with this one, Dr. Martin Luther King Day, and honoring his legacy and what impact it has on us as Black Muslims in America, and what lessons can we derive from it? Because many of us, some of the things were Imam Naim and I particularly, we were discussing this subject. We like to try to be well read on what we're discussing, or at least have some familiarity with it. I don't know if I said that right. So Imam Naim mentioned something. He said, I'm not that familiar with Dr. King, and it made me think of something, because I was the same way. I am the same way, because when we think about Dr. King's legacy, if you go back and think about in school, for most of us, it was just like this non-violent, this passive, no matter what they do to us, we shall overcome. And in the history books, it just seemed like, these sit-ins and, trying to, equate ourselves with people who never cared about us, and it was, I guess when we were kids, we already passed through the Black Power movement. So it was like, man, this stuff is like, when I was in like elementary school, you read about it, it was like, oh, wow, that's great. And you heard the I Have a Dream speech, like, wow, that's really, that's something to strive for, where every person, Black, white, and, judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And yeah, that's a world that we should strive to be, but it was never one that, that was intended for us in this country, But as reflecting on Dr. Martin Luther King's life, I actually used this topic as far as my khutbah on Friday, and I labeled it the King's Day Observed, the King's Day. So I use it to segue into talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as being the Malik, Al-Malik, the King, where he says in the Quran, وَلَهُ مُلْكُ يَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ, He said, and for him is the dominion on the day when the trumpet is sounded. So I used Dr. Martin Luther King's, a little bit of his legacy to bring attention to the real observance of the day of the real king, meaning Allahu subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm not going to do a shameless plug and say you should go back and listen to it, because it was okay. I thought it was okay, so but so now we're back at Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy. And as I was doing some of the, research on him, it was really looking at his legacy. It was really remarkable because, there's the argument. I seen a meme today, and it says more Malcolm and less Martin. I know if you've seen or heard this. So what people mean by it is like, more of this militancy, more of this fighting against the powers that be. And, less of Malcolm, less of Martin, less of this passive kind of we should overcome singing type of thing, But if you look at Dr. Martin Luther King's life, it was really a whole life of really sacrifice and putting yourself on the front line and, giving up all of your luxuries, for a cause that you really were convinced about, and it was really starting with his education, because I think he graduated high school at 15. And then he got his master's like at 19, and I think he got his PhD or something like that by the time he was 26. So he was young and he was educated and he had a mission and he was committed. And he arranging those sit-ins and those peaceful marches and all those protests. It was really something, and then to go back and listen to his speeches. He was a real fiery orator. He used to bring the message home. He would bring the house down. And it was, and in particular, when I was doing this research, there's a book that you all might be interested in. It's by Dr. Tavis Smiley. It's called Death of a King. It's called Death of the King, and it's a small book, and it's actually chronicling the last year of Dr. King's life. The last year of Dr. King's life, from April 1967 up until his assassination in April 1968. And and the book is kind of small, but it was covering some of the things that Dr. King was going through and the transition of his Southern Christian Leadership Conference organization, and some of the internal kind of disputes they were having. And them, being the Black Power movement on the rise, particularly in the book, it talks about Stokely Carmichael, and it talks about one incident with Dr. King and Stokely Carmichael was on the same stage. Dr. King was increasingly becoming like disengaged with certain policies, especially with the Vietnam War. And he had done a speech where he kind of spoke out against the Vietnam War, and that's one of the speeches that he received flack. The Genius is putting up there, says, beyond Vietnam, a time to break the silence. All right, so this is the speech that Dr. King did that kind of people said it was kind of like undermining everything he built for, because some of his advisors were saying, Dr. King, you're a preacher, you're not really a politician. And at that time, Lyndon B. Johnson was the president, and he was like the ally of Dr. King, and Dr. King was kind of reluctant to meet with President Johnson. Like he kind of avoided it because he was, at this point, he had become convinced that it was the right thing, the moral responsibility for him to speak out against the war. Now, politically, and then line up with his allies, it wasn't the best thing, but he still stood by it nonetheless. And then after that, he was on a platform with Stokely Carmichael. And, Stokely Carmichael was up and coming, the radical. He was the Black Power movement, just a year prior, the Black Panthers had launched in Oakland, California in 1966. And Stokely Carmichael was, I think he was the president of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee or one of those organizations. Yeah, and he was on fire. He was the one that was saying those speeches like, "We not our grandfathers in them." He's like, we're a new type of nigga. We not scared. And he used to say these speeches, and he was young, and so it was starting to actually cause a rift. In this book that Tavis Smiley wrote, he was saying how that some of his most ardent supporters, like Harry Belafonte and stuff like that, they were starting to look like, yeah, we love you, Dr. King, but this young boy over here, man, he's spitting that fire, man, and we, talking about us as black folk, we'll jump on what's trendy. We'll leave people that we supported to jump on something that's trendy. So they was like, so Dr. King was like, nah, these my dudes here, they not gonna leave me. But it was that, that pressure of, people, starting to see a new message, and that the old nonviolent message wasn't really flying no more. So he had internal disputes. He had, trying to keep his allies and then trying to keep his legacy together, and his last year was really full of, a lot of traveling, a lot of speeches. I was reading in the book, it mentions that when Dr. King won his Nobel Peace Prize, he I think the cash amount that they gave him was like $54,000, and at that time that was a lot of money. I mean, it's not too bad now, but at that time that was a lot of money. So it said that Dr. King was so committed to his cause that was his personal money. He put all of his money back into the movement, to support the movement. And even at the objection of his own wife, his wife had suggested that, well, why don't you start a college fund, like $5,000 a piece for our kids, And Dr. King was like, no, this mission is greater. So some of these things resonate with us as leaders, because these are some of the things that we go through. We got to put our own money up sometimes. A lot of times, our wives give us good information, good sound reasoning, and sometimes we disregard it. Sometimes it comes back to bite us. Sometimes we had to go on what we felt and what we thought was best, or good, bad, or indifferent, But Dr. King, in the last year of his life, it also mentions in the book that he had met with Muhammad Ali. He had met with Muhammad Ali, and also there's a picture you can find if you search online of him and Elijah Muhammad. So Dr. King was really impressed with what Muhammad Ali was doing, because in 1967, that was the same year that Muhammad Ali had dodged the draft, and where he took an uncompromised stance, and then they had like the same message, because Dr. King was speaking out against the war, and that was Muhammad Ali. The famous line, "Ain't no Viet Cong never called me no nigga." Like, what I mean. So I'm not really going over there to fight them. And Dr. King was also, spreading this message, but his thing was still a nonviolent approach. And then he also spoke in some of his speeches about, a lot of the turmoil that was erupting in the 60s, and a lot of the civil unrest, a lot of the riots throughout the country with things that were happening. And, so he was really starting to take another approach. He was really starting to look at another approach. So meeting with Muhammad Ali, meeting with Elijah Muhammad. And then there was one speech he did. I forget the name of it, but I can't find the whole one, but it's one that he was talking about economic empowerment. And what he mentioned in the speech was when the government passed legislation that they gave, white folks land and grants, and built what he called grant colleges, called land grant colleges, where they taught them how to farm and they taught them how agriculture, and gave them like really low interest loans so they can develop, and they had a whole head start. He said that these are the people that tell you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, where while they were doing for their own people because of race, they were giving them every opportunity afforded to them, when they promised us the same thing. And like some of this stuff, like when you read about this stuff happening 50, 60 years ago, it's like it still resonates now. Our people getting smacked in the face about reparations, other ethnic groups coming here and getting loans and getting, government issued money and stuff like that. And so Dr. King, he said in the speech, he said, we're going to go on this movement. He said, but this time we coming back. He said, we coming back to get our check. He said, we coming back to get our check. Now, if you put that in the time frame, the upcoming Black Power movement, him meeting with Muhammad Ali, Elijah Muhammad. There's some Islamic influence there. Well, at least what we understood to be Islam. And that was something that King had that power. King had that power. I don't know if many of you knew, but when JFK was president, when they had the I Have a Dream speech, that was in August of '63, that JFK didn't want to meet with Dr. King. As a matter of fact, he didn't make his presence known. He said because he thought it was going to be a riot. He thought it was going to be a riot. And then once he found out it was, everything went peaceful, he invited Dr. King to the White House and all that stuff. I can't remember if he refused or not. But initially, he didn't want to be on the same platform with Dr. Martin Luther King. But in that last year, then in that speech I was telling you, he said, we coming for our check. Now, you just imagine, I mentioned this in the khutbah too. Now, you remember in the movie Malcolm X, when one of the NOI members got beat up by the police officers, and then he went to the police station, and he said one of our people was here, and the guy was like, no. Then he was looking through the book. There's his name right there. So then he called for the ambulance. So then people started gathering around, and so the Fruit of Islam, they was all disciplined. So then when it was time to leave, Malcolm X did this finger point like that. You remember that scene? And then everybody marched in unison, right? And so then the police chief, whatever, he said, no man should have that much power. Now think about, if Dr. Martin Luther King, with all the influence that he had. Now, if you remember in the movie that Malcolm X was only able to do that with the Nation of Islam. Imagine Dr. King doing that move and telling everybody to move in the country. We're going down here and we're getting our check. He would have had the whole country behind him and not just black folks. He had the power where he could have went down there. We're not leaving. We're going to sit in. We're going to boycott. We're going to do this until something to our demands are met. That's the kind of power that he had, and of course we know that's one of the reasons why they assassinated, and there was a he had so much internal conflict with some of his members, and the FBI was behind it. They had wiretaps and stuff like that, and what I was going to say. Oh yeah, they wrote him an anonymous letter. They told him, you should go kill yourself. The FBI wrote him a letter and said you should kill yourself, and if you don't, then we'll try to tarnish your image. Well, all of these things, just looking at the life of Dr. King, he was becoming increasingly unsettled with how things were going, and he was more convinced, more concerned about his people. Now, just imagine, and this is why when we go through our struggles, we have to be concentrated on what we're doing because, they're always trying to infiltrate us. Imagine him meeting with Muhammad Ali and Elijah Muhammad and other great leaders, and they have a same mission. You have a Christian preacher, you have Islamic preacher, then you have a military wing with the Black Power movement. Like we were on our way to having our own kind of institution within this country where we didn't have to rely on them because we've done it before with things like Black Wall Street. We've done it. We've developed places where just our people live and flourish and thrive. And just imagine the whole country and then get support from people, and putting that together. That would have been something remarkable. And they knew it. They knew it. So there's no coincidence, as you all know, that all of these great leaders, Dr. King, Haj Malik Shabazz, Medgar Evers, all of these people getting assassinated because, when you care about your people and put your neck out, that's the possibility of what happens, So, yeah, there was also a speech they didn't want him to give on the day that he died, and there's a lot of stuff, but Dr. King's life was really remarkable, and so now when I revisited, it made me think okay, I'm not going to keep buying into this narrative he was just like some type of just passive weak dude, because there was one time Dr. King was on stage and he got stabbed. You ever hear about that? When he got stabbed, he was going to give a speech and somebody came and stabbed him on stage. And then
that happened in Harlem.
Yeah, it was in Harlem. And then there was another incident where a guy ran up on him, and he stole on Dr. King, knocked him down. And then they said, he got up afterwards, he was a little shaken, but he got up and finished his speech. So he wasn't no punk, He just was sticking to his principles, So, and as we, review his life tonight and his legacy, and we tied into, the dean, there was a lot of acts of just really sacrificing for a greater good, sacrificing for a bigger cause. And, these are some of the legacies that we hope to carry, inshallah ta'ala. So I'm going to stop there and let my fellow imams go.
I'm supposed to go, or you, Imam?
Let Imam Amin go. Because he got scatterbrain thoughts. He got to get them out the way quick before he leaves.
I'll go, inshallah. Send me to the store. We're laughing at an inside joke that we had before. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to talk about several things that I want us to look at the life of and the work, not really the whole life, just the work of Martin Luther King. And I want to parallel that with the life of Malcolm X, the work of Malcolm X. Because there are a lot of similarities in their work, though people try to put them as opposites when really they were parallel when you pay attention. So there are several things that I want to extract from that. Number one, they all had, both Martin and Malcolm had several concerns that were extremely important. Number one, they had a very extreme and intense love for their people. And the motivating thing that pushed them to do their work was this love for their people. So I think that's a central thing that we should take from the life of Martin Luther King, as well as Malcolm X, because I really think we should look at our leaders and see what we need to extract, and not just look at them as historic figures of the past, rather examples of what we need to do in the present. So I think when we look at them, all of us should develop a healthy love for Black people. If you're ever going to be inspired to work on behalf of our people, you have to have a love for them. The second thing is, when you love someone, you want to see them in the best condition and situations, which is going to make you want to work. So when Martin Luther King had three main things that he ended up working for. Initially started on one thing, but at the end, it evolved into something more comprehensive. So he started with the bus boycott, and then voting rights and things. But towards the end of his life and the end of his work, he concentrated on three basic things: poverty, economics, the system of capitalism, but economics. And he went from civil rights to human rights because he wasn't just looking at the state of getting a couple of bills passed. He wanted real engagement in the society as a human being, right? So when they say racial equality, he was looking at it from the side of saying, listen, this doesn't stop till we got the same thing you got. So whatever dignifies you as a human should dignify us as a human. We shouldn't be looked at as things or property. Rather, we are human beings that deserve and demand what every other human being demands. So when you look at Malcolm, these were similar concerns, that our condition in the inner cities, our need for economic empowerment, and which led him to go international, was to go from civil rights to human rights, where Martin ended up talking about the humanity of the Black people, not just the not just some token rights. So what you would learn from that is they were both looking for realistic inclusion in the society and in the world, right? They weren't just looking for some tokenism, right? I want to be really included, and Black people should be really included. In that, so that's their work. But I wanted something that is important in that work is that they both started when they were very young. They got to their work, they were both in their 20s. In fact, if you study their beginning in the struggle to their death, they both, Malcolm and Martin, only worked actually at the height of their work for 13 years. That's it. You should pay attention to that. All what we talk about in terms of Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X was only a 13-year period. That's it. 13 years. That's not a long time. I think about it. I've been the Imam for around 13 years, and it seemed like yesterday. So their whole career and what we celebrate and talk about only lasts a little over a decade, right? So what we can learn from that is that we don't have a lot of time. If we based that as a successful model, that means we're not going to get a long time to do this work. 13 years. If you look at Martin Luther King, that bus boycott was 1955. He died 1968. When Malcolm started, 1952, when he got out of prison, he died 1965, right? 13 years. So both of them were 26 years old when they started to really get involved in the struggle for Black people. 26 years old. If you look at us, that means we have deteriorated in our work because we have a bunch of elder people trying to run the struggle when they had young people. All these people we talk about during those times were young people, all in the early 30s or 20s. So we have dropped the ball with the connection of youth. And it's something you want to learn about when you talk about engagement or struggle, or even in the military. After a certain age, they cut it off, right? You can't say in the military, if you get around 35, you consider too old, right? So there is the need for youth, because when you have youth, in any struggle, you need two main elements: energy and aspiration. Young people got plenty of energy and they have a lot of optimism with their aspiration, right? So this is extremely important that we start to realize we have to connect to our youth, because they're going to be the ones who are needed to lead the struggle. There is another element that we find in Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, was a strong faith-based movement behind them, or support. So if you look at Martin Luther King, his major support was the church. It was a means to gather people, to have people listen. They had a base, the church. If you look at Malcolm, it was the nation, the temple. That's where he did a lot of his recruiting. A lot of his message got out from the support from the temple, as well as a lot of Martin Luther King's message came out through the church. So a lot of those lectures and fiery speeches, you find their basis in the way they gathered each other was in quote unquote places of worship, which means there was a God concept behind the movements, right? That is the necessity of a faith-based movement. And this is important to realize, because when you're going up against an enemy that seems almost impossible to overcome, you need faith in God. You need some kind of faith-based initiative, and they both had it. And they never left it off. And with faith-based initiatives, you have morality behind it, right? So when Martin Luther King talked about nonviolence, one of his reasons for nonviolence and choosing nonviolence, because he thought that was the best moral approach. And if you looked at Malcolm, one of the things that people always said about Malcolm, he was a man of morality and integrity, right? And that was something that made him exceptional. But all that came from a faith-based background. If we look at the end of their careers, and it's something we should avoid, is both of them suffered from a lack of financial support. Both of them. And if the year before, there is an interesting interview that he did in May of 1967, Martin Luther King. And he said, that interview is extremely important. You should check it out. It actually is in color, right? It's only about 26 minutes. It's something that you should look at, because you see a whole different Martin Luther King that they never promote. And he said something in that speech and show you his growth. From 1963, when he made the I Have a Dream speech, within the following years, so 4 years later to 1967, he said, I was very optimistic then, but my optimism needs to be checked with a little realism. He said, because my dream has really become a nightmare. That's powerful. But we still today are talking about a dream while we're still living in the midst of that nightmare. That hasn't changed. And we're celebrating 13 years of work while they have set us back in 56 and 57 years in a worse condition, if you really think about it, than we was when they started. That's deep. So they got us celebrating 13 years of a struggle, and we look from 1968 and 1965, right? You're talking about 54 years from Martin Luther King, 57 years from Malcolm X. And we could talk today and we would be having the same conversation that they had a half a century ago. So it's some things that we should look at in their lives to see where we should make change. The other thing is that economic or financial support. Martin Luther King said something. He said, that they tell Black people that you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. He said, but that sounds great, and I agree with it in a sense, but it's hard to tell someone who's bootless to do that. And I think the only way we're going to be empowered is when we start realizing we need some boots. And no one's giving us boots, so we have to purchase or construct our own. We have to make our own boots. And in the society we live is a capitalistic society. Therefore, it's ran by money. And we often talk about change without money. It's not going to work in the society we have. And they both realize that. In fact, Imam Naim had got that famous letter that Malcolm X wrote to the father of Tariq Ramadan saying, I can't travel because my people don't have no money and they can't support me. So I want to go and speak on behalf of my people, but I can't do it because I'm not in the financial position to do it. And he found himself, which when I look back, it's sad that he was begging the Saudis to send him money. So we like a fiery speech. We like all of that. But when it comes to actually supporting those initiatives and really going to another level, we get cold feet. But if we ever want real change, we have to be the agents ourselves of that change. We can't expect no one to do something for us that we should do for ourselves. And both of them at the end of their lives realized that significantly because it was a major impediment for them reaching their goals. So I want to say there's 4 things, and I'll close with this. That we need 4 things, and we can come back further. Number 1, we need Black self-determination. We have to go back where it's a badge of honor to be a Black man or woman. Like that James Brown, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Especially as Muslims, because a lot of us have left our Blackness when we became Muslim. And we thought being Black and being Muslim is incompatible. And I think we need to change that narrative. No, I don't think. I know we need to change that narrative. We have to have this type of, I'm black and I'm proud of it, and this is what we're doing for our people. The second point is we need to have a serious economic investment in our own collective empowerment. A serious economic investment in our own collective empowerment. So we have to see ourselves as a group, as a family, as a community, as a nation, and we must invest in our nation, right? Because we don't have real leadership, we must have real conviction in our collective struggle. And that conviction should lead us to invest in our own development. The third thing, that it is important and it is an absolute necessity to have Black leadership. When we look at Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, we had Black leaders. Today, we don't have Black leaders that we collectively agree upon as our leaders. We need to develop that. Because leaders set the direction. That doesn't mean others are not in a consulting body to help that leader, but we need some leadership. And we need Black leadership that represents us and that will fight for our common good. The last thing is individual sacrifice. We have to have principles that we believe that we are willing to die for. We have to develop principles that we really are willing to die for. Without it, we're not going to see much progress. There has to be sacrifice. You have to give of yourself, of your wealth, of all that you have for the collective good of your people. And I'll stop there. That's my scattered thoughts in that. Imam Naim, you know, I wrote all that down while I was listening to Imam Faheem.
No, you had your stuff ready too, man.
I was just writing just now. See, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa afdalu salatu wa atamu tasneem ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa radiyallahu ta'ala an sadati tabi'een wa ulama al-amalin wa a'immatul arba'at al-mujtahideen wa muqallidihim ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad that you are here joining us and engaging us in this conversation. Before I mention what I intend to mention, I want to remind us to, as our Imam Faheem always says, your door fee. We try to encourage everyone to pay a minimum of $10 every time we come on the air live. And a few minutes ago, while Imam Amin was spoken, I saw that we had only raised $70. And so we're trying to challenge ourselves. We try to challenge us to raise to meet our goal of $500 within the first hour. Alhamdulillah. Now we're at $166 so far. So Alhamdulillah, let's get us over the 500 mark within the first hour, and that's in 15 minutes, right? So, Alhamdulillah. So don't forget that every week we have this goal. For me, my first memories of Martin Luther King was in elementary school. Now, after I went to kindergarten in the hood, my parents bused me out to a school in a different zip code, basically a white neighborhood. As a result of the civil rights movement and all of those things, they put in place affirmative action. So they, most places back then, when you went to grade school, you had to go to school in the place where you were zoned based upon where you lived at. So you went to your neighborhood school. Uh, but uh, Black people were allowed when I was growing up to take school buses, cheese buses, you know, to other schools. And so uh, from first grade to ninth grade, I went to school in predominantly white schools. And my earliest memory of that Martin Luther King had nothing to do with the history books or anything like that. It was whenever we would do school plays. And sometimes they would have a play and they would like do the I have a dream speech, right? That's a speech that most of us know. If we don't know anything about Martin Luther King, we know the I have a dream speech. Even if we don't know the whole speech, we know the part I have a dream, we know that, right? So uh that's it, right? I didn't know history, no deep dive, no nothing. I definitely never heard nothing about Malcolm X in school. How I was introduced uh to Malcolm X, even though at the time I was so unconscious that I didn't even know Malcolm X was being quoted, was in rap music, right? But it wasn't until I became Muslim. And for me, a lot of people, sometimes people are conscious and then they come to Islam. For me, it was Islam that awoke within me my so-called Black consciousness. And when I became Muslim, it wasn't until I was exposed to Malcolm X that inspired that they kind of like lit a fire in me to want to learn and study. Because after being Muslim for about 2 years or so, maybe less than that, the movie Malcolm X was in production and the marketing was all out and stuff. And so I started, my Islamic studies started really with two books that you wouldn't associate with Islam. It started with the autobiography of Malcolm X and Roots. And after that, I began to study Islam more seriously. Uh, so when you studying and you learning about Malcolm X, as Imam Amin said, they pit these two people against each other. Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, like they were against each other. And so, and when you listen to a lot of Malcolm speeches, you find, Malcolm was getting on Martin Luther King a lot of times. Uh, One of my most favorite speeches that Malcolm ever gave was Message to the Grassroots. And he gave that in Detroit. And, if you never listened to that speech, you need to listen to it because, he went in not only on Martin Luther King, but a lot of the other major civil rights leaders who he called the Big Six. And so, but I think Malcolm X, if you look at him, he's most known, I think, for his speech, The Ballot or the Bullet. And he gave that speech a few times, and it's been like he gave one in Cleveland, he gave that another one in Detroit, right? But one of the things that he said in that speech that I think a lot of people uh they don't really ponder over because in in our community, the Black community, there's always this clash with regards like integration, separation, right? And it didn't start with Malcolm or Martin. It went generations even before them, but they found themselves in the same, thing. And he said, Malcolm, he said, you aren't for integration and I'm not for separation. What you and I both are for is freedom. We just got different ways of getting at it, right? And so I think that's very important when we learning about anything or anybody. We have to be careful about who's putting these ideas in our mind. Okay, you are against each other because you are promoting integration and you are promoting separation. And Malcolm always, when people used to say you're for segregation, he used to say I'm not for segregation. And he had a very articulate way of expressing a difference by his usage of pronouns, I'm not pronouns, prepositions. He said, we don't want to be integrated with the white man. We don't want to be segregated by the white man. We want to be separated from the white man, right? You know, that's a gift that a lot of people don't have, to be able to explain concepts just by changing, prepositional phrases, right? That's a gift, right? And so I mentioned that to show how they, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they both had the same thing in common. They wanted freedom. They wanted what was best for their people. They just had believed that they had, that different ways, different methodologies would help them achieve their goal. And so, we have to begin to use our minds and think. Like, a lot of times, people, want us to think that people are against each other or people are enemies, and we don't really process the information that's given to us, and we really believe this person is our enemy, and this person may not be our enemy. What me and this person may want could be the same thing. We just got different ways that we think that we can get that thing. And so that's very important. Another thing that I've jotted down with regards to Martin Luther King, and it can also be said about Malcolm X. And again, you have to watch out the way people, revise and change history. If you listen to the narrative, you would think most of the black people supported Martin Luther King, and a few little bit people supported Malcolm X. Neither one is true. Most of the black people didn't openly take a position. It wasn't like black people were divided, 70% with Martin Luther King and 30% with Malcolm X. It's more like 80% ain't taking a position and 15% with Martin and 5% with Malcolm. And I'm saying that to say that when you really listen to people who was actually there, and you could accomplish this by watching documentaries or talking to people who may still be alive, you find out that the average black person was not involved in the struggle. The average black person was not involved in the struggle on any side of the coin, on the integration side or the separation side or what came later, the black power side. They're not involved in it. And so I think this is important because a lot of people like to trick us to think that the masses of people were conscious and they were involved in some way. And that's not the case. And so you say, well, wow, these people changed history. Exactly. They changed the course of history. And it didn't take a lot of people to do it. And when change, go ahead.
You gotta watch them jokers.
Gotta watch them jokers. By the way, that's not my quote. That's the quote of our beloved Imam Abdul Rashid. I heard him say that on more than one occasion. And I just love the way he says it, right? So that's why I say it all the time. Alhamdulillah. And we have to keep in mind, so we have to be mindful. A lot of times, we're waiting for a groundswell of the masses of any group of people to become conscious, and then change will happen. Life never works like that. When you look at the number of Sahaba in comparison to the rest of the Arabs, it was only a small amount of people. It was only a small amount of people. And, so that's another thing that I mentioned. Another thing that I jotted down was the fact that you need speeches and you need people to articulate or express what the goal is, what the goals are, and and how we intend to go there. But at the same time, you need organizational muscle behind you to affect work on the ground. Like what was mentioned earlier, Martin Luther King had the Southern Christian Leadership Conference behind him, right? They were organized. And a lot of people really don't appreciate the bus boycott. When the bus boycott happened, it wasn't just people just stop riding the bus and then that was that, and then and then and then they make history like that. No, people were still going to work and stuff, and people still needed to travel. It took a lot of organization to pull off that bus boycott. It took people was carpooling and all of that kind of stuff. That's the part of the history people don't tell you. That was very organized. And so in order to do that, you have to have a core group of people that care and are willing to sacrifice from their own personal wealth and time to make sure that the goal is achieved. People using their personal cars, carpooling with strangers and all that stuff to make sure that they can get to work and stuff like that, just to avoid the bus system. So that's extremely important. Don't lose sight of that. And another thing about Martin Luther King is he stopped betraying his conscience. He stopped betraying his conscience, and that made him more effective. In that speech that Imam Faheem was talking about, the speech he gave on Vietnam on April 4th, 1967. And by the way, before he gave that speech, a lot of people don't know that prior to that speech, he had given other speeches, made different statements, and was aligning himself with dissenters, people that was openly speaking against the war in Vietnam. And so his popularity was already declining before he gave that speech. People wasn't liking him like that. In fact, they sort of kind of made a Boondock episode highlighting that. I don't know if y'all remember the Boondocks. Well, they did it where, Martin Luther King, I think he went in a coma and he woke up in our era, right? So they made a thing out of it. But they showed how in that episode that Martin Luther King was not popular. He was not the Martin Luther King that they want you to believe he is now. Like Dr. Cornel West says, it calls it the Santa Clausification of our leaders, right? So they make them all big, warm, soft, and fluffy after they done killed them and destroyed their character, destroyed their legacy and everything. They make them all nice, soft, cuddly, and friendly, and repackage them and give them back to you. So the media, government, they did not like Martin Luther King even before he gave this speech. And when he gave this speech, it was over with. He was like public enemy number one. They was basically saying he was un-American, and they tried to say he was a communist. And I printed out the speech literally when Imam Faheem was speaking, and I was listening to it before we got on the air. And he says, right? He says, over the past 2 years, as I have moved to break the betrayal of my own silences and to speak from the burnings of my own heart, as I have called for radical departures from the destruction of Vietnam, many persons have questioned me about the wisdom of my path, right? And so I highlighted that part, what he said, because a lot of times when we giving dawah and stuff, how many times, right, do we hear our Imam Amin talking about leaders who know better, but they don't act according to their knowledge for this or that reason, right? Martin Luther King got tired of towing the party line, and a lot of people, when you talk about his movement and his organization, you had people, some real shady people behind it. Look up the name Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin. He was like the architect of a lot of this stuff. And a lot of times he didn't even want Martin Luther King to defend himself in his own home. And one time Martin Luther King was arguing with him about that. But Bayard Rustin, you got to look up this guy. You got to watch these jokers, right? You got to watch these jokers. He was on that alphabet stuff before they started calling it alphabet stuff. And you all know what I mean by alphabet stuff. Don't type it in the comments. You know what I mean, right? Alphabet. He was with that stuff before that. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. He was with that stuff before they gave it a title. We must say that.
Limp wrist.
Yeah. He was on that stuff back then. And he was also sort of kind of like the architect to use the struggle and the plight of Black people to pivot and give the benefit of the struggle to alphabet people. Him, Bayard Rustin, who was sort of like the architect behind a lot of the things we heard Martin Luther King speaking about early on in his career. You got to watch these jokers. You got to watch these. You know, a lot of times, a lot of us, we've been in Islamic organizations and pseudo-Islamic organizations. A lot of times, and this is something I see happening all the time. You have like a spokesperson or a leader or a key person in the organization, and that person is more sincere than the leader of the organization. And a lot of times, that person and that leader end up bumping heads. And so you've even seen this with Martin Luther King in his situation. And another thing about his situation is that his enemies, they used people close to him in order to destroy him and destroy his legacy, just like they did with Malcolm X. For example, a lot of y'all don't know, but the family of Martin Luther King sued the United States government in civil court for assassinating him, and they won. They got a settlement in civil court. Like people in the so-called woke community or the conscious community, they know this already. Maybe a lot of us don't, but they won. And the lawyer that represented the family is William Pepper. And he wrote a few books. You can find lectures of him on YouTube talking about, the research and who all was involved in Martin Luther King's assassination. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference, a lot of the pastors that was down with him, the mafia, the military, I think it was the army, I forgot which branch, the military, the medical establishment, because a lot of y'all don't know, he didn't die on that balcony. He died when he got to the hospital. They made everybody leave the room and the doctor killed him. He could have been saved. He didn't die by the bullets. He died in the hospital, right? But I mentioned that just to show that they had a signal that the snipers, there was more than one set of snipers, by the way. But they had a signal about something to do with the ties on that they were wearing, and there was a certain color tie that the snipers were supposed to look for, and you had these pastors, helping. I forgot the pastor that was with him at the time. Not only Jesse Jackson, not only him. There was another dude, I can't remember his name, but he helping them get dressed and get this tie. It's deep. All of this stuff is documented, and they won the case. It ain't like it's just some unprofessional, just self-made person, doing his own study. No, this stuff was presented in court, and the King family actually won based upon all of that. But you don't hear about all of that, and this is important because a lot of times when we doing this work, the people that's supposed to be your friend, the people that's supposed to be with you, are the main people that's going to be used to kill you, and be used to work against you, and be used against you. Because they look at Martin Luther King was like, who this young dude coming up, getting all the shine, all the spotlight and stuff, and he's not doing things the way we used to doing them. So there was a lot of animosity against Martin Luther King. And he would call out hypocrisy. Martin Luther King would call out hypocrisy. I just want to, in conclusion, read another paragraph from that same speech. And he called it out. And a lot of us Muslims, we don't even have half the heart he had. A lot of us, because we brought into the narrative that, you either got to be cool with Malcolm or you got to be cool with Martin. And so we like clown Martin Luther King, but a lot of us ain't ready to die for what we believe in, number one, right? And a lot of us don't have the heart to say what he said, during that he said. But anyway, he said, perhaps the more tragic recognition of reality took place when it became clear to me that the war was doing far more than devastating the hopes of the poor at home. It was sending their sons and their brothers and their husbands to fight and to die in extraordinarily high proportions relative to the rest of the population. We were taking the Black young men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles away to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia or East Harlem. So we have been repeatedly faced with the cruel irony of watching Negro and white boys on TV screens as they kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them together in the same schools. So we watch them in brutal solidarity burning the huts of a poor village, but we realize that they would never live on the same block in Detroit. I could not be silent in the face of such cruel manipulation of the poor. And so that's what that's Martin Luther King. A lot of times we might not appreciate, how hard those words was, but you have to pay attention to the time that he was living in. Those was fighting words that he was saying. He was calling stuff out. And so those are a few of the things that I jotted down while Imam Faheem and Imam Amin was speaking, right? Alhamdulillah. I wanted to mention that. And I wanted to ask Imam Amin, he mentioned an interview that he gave in May 1967. Did you mention the date as well? Your mic is muted.
I'll send it to you too.
Okay.
It was May the 8th,
May 8th.
1967.
Okay.
May the 8th, 1967. And I'm getting ready to send it to you right now.
Alhamdulillah. Shukran. I'm done. Alhamdulillah.
Go ahead, Imam Faheem.
Okay, yeah, we raised $300. So who's gonna be our Harry Belafonte? Who's gonna take out the foot in the bill? Not no bill, but Harry Belafonte was a big supporter of Dr. King. And even when his popularity started to wane, he still supported him anyway. So let's round that out, man, before we get another round from Imam Amin. Yeah, but Dr. King's life, man, it was really something, man. And I think Ahmed, our brother Ahmed Mubarak, I think he should be tuning in. I think he should be able to come in with the link, man. But that's one of the co-authors of what's the title of the book? Ahmed Mubarak, you there?
The black narrative, centering the black narrative.
Yeah, yes, he's a co-author of one of the books with our brother Imam Dawood Walid. He was in the audience. Another person we should give a shout out. He liked to play the back. He liked to play the back, but we need to bring him. Need to bring him up to the front, man. So can you hear me? Do I sound clear?
Yeah, he got to say he want to come on.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, but it's very his work was very remarkable, and then there were some things about where we make a joke now. You remember the movie Coming to America, when he was like, "Yeah, I met Dr. Martin Luther King. I see him somewhere. Somebody came up to me, hit me in my chest. I turned around and said, 'Hey, Dr. King.' He said, 'Oh, I thought you were somebody else.'" So Dr. King was like, he was changing the narrative. Like, man, I'm not marching no more. I'm stealing on jokers, man. Whoever get in my way, I'm tired of this crap. Yeah, centering the black narrative. Ustad Ahmed Mubarak, inshallah. He might have tuned out. Yeah. So, but all these things we mentioned is very important because we have responsibility to continue that legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and El-Hajj Malik Shabazz and other great leaders who put their life on the lines. You know, some of the great leaders like our Imam Amin, you know, may Allah free him, you know, who was doing that movement during that time and was part of the, you know, the militant young, you know, new age group of people who wasn't going for it anymore, you know, and carry, you know, we got to carry all of those legacies together as we move forward as a people, and you know, trying to bring our people along because, you know, like one of the things I was mentioning earlier, that you know, our people are very finicky sometimes. You know, they're listening to certain things. It's fiery, it's exciting, it's enlightening, it's uplifting. But then as soon as the next voice comes, we old news. You know what I mean? But we can't let it be about, you know, the current trend and stuff like that. We're talking about an end goal. You know, we're talking about some progress that, you know, many of us may not live to see it. You know, we may not live to see it. And sometimes we have a mindset that, you know, if we put something forth in our efforts, that we got to see some type of fruits. And no, we're talking about something, you know, we want somebody to be talking about us 50 years later while we're gone, you know. We want somebody to be talking about the work that we try to do or that we did, you know, and that inshallah we'll have a chance to complete, you know, before we leave out of here, you know, and the work that we're doing is work that's included for all of us. You know what I'm saying? When we putting this together, inshallah ta'ala, and this stuff will carry on for all of the people who are involved, you know. So, and that's one of the reasons why we ask, you know, to make sure we try to, you know, complete this drive that we do every week. You know, so if you haven't given yet, you know, just take a moment, you know, to drop $10 to $20 or whatever you have, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala double and multiply your wealth. So who's this? Okay, this is what they call a troll. You see this question here?
No, I don't see it.
Okay, so on the YouTube.
I see it, but I don't see it.
Okay, all right. All right, well, we disregard it.
You know, one thing I was thinking about, you know, I meant to mention it. They mentioned when you watch a lot of these documentaries, especially the Malcolm documentaries, how they were meaning the people that were more aligned with Malcolm and the people that were more aligned with Martin Luther King. You know, they had a lot of friends in common. And they were meeting. Specifically, Ossie Davis used to always mention a meeting that they had in New York, in Long Island, and Martin Luther King couldn't make it, but he sent a representative, and they talk about how they basically agreed to that, you know, since Martin Luther King was had a more stronger base in the South, that Martin Luther King would organize and rally the South, and Malcolm would rally the North. And uh, uh, that's when you hear Malcolm. He would, you know, they basically agreed to, like, you know, leverage their differences in in our collective favor. So you would hear Malcolm in speeches after those meetings say stuff like, "You better, those people in the South better give Martin Luther King what he wants, because if they don't, there's those of us who are more than willing to do it another way." These type of statements were made, you know, after they had this meeting, this understanding. Okay, we're going to agree to disagree. You know, uh, I think my way is more effective. You think your way is more effective, but we can leverage our differences. Like, you know, doing it the way, if people give you what you want, it's still better than where we at. So, you know, let's, so that you start seeing them change their rhetoric a little.
You know, go ahead, man, Faheem.
Now, I was just going to ask if anybody in the audience had any questions or comments that they want us to address. It's the time now, inshallah. Ready, man.
You know, one of the things that I think we should keep in mind, especially us, Martin Luther King nor Malcolm, at the beginning of their journey, never saw themselves where they ended up, right? When you're in the struggle, you sometimes cannot see the success of what you're doing in the moment, right? And I think for us, we have to, while remaining humble, be deliberate in our work towards our collective success. A lot of times, in the name of humility, we reserve some of our effort in the work. You follow what I mean? Like, you have more to give, but you don't want to seem like you think you like that. And I know this is a trick of the devil. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of lagging behind under the guise of not trying to be seen. It's a trick, right? Some of us have to be in front. Some of us are needed to take the bull by the horns, as they say, right? And if we don't do that, we have failed our people, right? So, like, I look at the work we're doing right now, and honestly, I'm amazed at the consistency of what we're doing. I really like what we're doing as a collective is extremely hard with our people. To keep our attention through this whole pandemic and grow and keep objectives and goals and meet them and be consistent, that's a huge success, right? And I think each and every one of us need to realize our significance in doing that and take that more serious and be more deliberate in what we're doing. Like I saw up there, I'll put it up, and I've learned something. So you're going to hear me. We got to stop being afraid to demand from us that we do better. We can't be shy if we're serious about what we want to do as a people. So I was looking like this, alhamdulillah, $100 from the Minara Muslim Center in Albuquerque. May Allah reward you generously and immensely, right? We owe them another visit. They are building. We saw them in one place. They got out of that place. They started another place. Where's the follow-up with us to support them, right? And the way we were able to support them was that we had the money from us to go there. Think about that. It was this platform that paid for the plane tickets and the hotels to go support that community. And that community benefited greatly from our presence. It was a support from what they're doing, but we still have to continue. It can't stop. It needs to be consistent, right? As the same thing in Kansas, as the same thing in Pittsburgh. And me and Imam Naeem, you don't know this about Imam Faheem. Imam Naeem was backbiting on you, I'm snitching. Right? That we need to be in Camden. We was talking about that, remember? Like, we've been all these places, but we haven't been to Camden and supporting Imam Faheem on the ground. We always support through our own work, but I'm talking about on the ground, helping him bring troops, helping him build what he needs to build. That's extremely important, right? That's something that you got to start thinking about, right? And we are strong when we support one another, right? I look at this. We've developed some, I won't say they're enemies. I would say we developed some people who are not so happy with our success. Right? I won't call them enemies at this point. Right? Right? But there are people who are not happy what we've done, right? They would like to do it. And that's not a bad thing, right? You should be doing it, right? But they're saying, how are they maintaining the support of the people? And an immigrant person, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm still getting over this cough stuff. He said to some black brothers, he said, they are successful in what they're doing because they're connecting to the people. They're reaching the people where the people are at. So that is something that is essential, and that's true. Everyone comes here, the majority of the people who come, they find something that they want to do, and we're providing an outlet to that, right? So for us, we got to realize what we're doing. I think that's so important. All of us, every one of us is important in doing this work. And I know for sure, the more work you do, you're going to plant the seed for someone who's going to come behind you and do that work better. Someone is going to be inspired by what you're doing who may be better than you. And the Prophet ﷺ indicated this with knowledge. And what we're doing is transferring knowledge, because knowledge is not always religious. There's worldly knowledge, there's spiritual knowledge, there's different types of knowledge, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, often the one who carries knowledge will carry it to someone who's more knowledgeable than them, right? And the benefit will come from someone else. But you have a role as carrying it, right? You have a role. All of us have a role in our collective success, and you have to see your importance, right? Your importance is, listen, hey, every week I give to the cause. Every week. That was Malcolm's problem. He wrote a letter saying no one's giving to the cause. I can't move. I can't do the work, right? I was talking to a brother who has a huge facility and nobody in it. He himself can't do what we can do. If we could get there, we could give life to that center, right? If we were there. He might can hold the center, but he might not have the ability to bring the people he needs or to reach the people. That's your job. My job is to hold down the fort. Your job is to build the fort. Your job is to support the fort. Some of our jobs is just to spread the information about it. Some of us, all we have to do is press the share button. Right? That's it. Press the share button. And that share button may reach someone who can do what you can't do. They just unaware. Today, I did something today, right? And I was thinking about this, right? I made an investment today. It was a big investment. And the only reason I was able to make that investment is because of the people I know. That's it. If I didn't know the people I know, there's no way I would have had access to the investment, right? But I know certain people. And those certain people, they open doors. You follow my point? Imam Naim, if you remember, when we came to do the fundraiser for your garden. Was that for the garden? Or was it for your pocket? Which one? Where did that money really go, brother? No, I'm joking. You know, that's always our concern, right?
Yeah. Where the money?
Right. But you know, we're open. One of the things. No, that was me. That was me. One of the things was that we had that white guy with us that happened to be my friend. Let's be honest. Had it been just me and you, we might have got something. But because we had the white guy with us, that changed the whole thing. A big difference. But we only had that white guy because me and the white guy's friends, right? I'm being sarcastic here, right? I could say who it was, but I'm just being funny, right? Seriously, right? And a lot of times, oh, somebody was knocking on the door. Who's that?
Who is it?
Oh, I'm too loud. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Too loud.
Who is it?
Well, take over for me. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Abdullah.
Where was he at? I don't know. I was kind of lost.
No, he was talking about how we're able to do things because of who we connected to, whatever. You know, it may not be, we can't do everything as individuals. We may know somebody, be connected to someone who will be able to open doors for us that we can't open ourselves. We're just giving some examples of that. You know, everybody got a part to play.
Some alphabet boys at the door. Yeah, everybody got a part to play. You know, when he was talking about the stuff that we're doing, and Imam Amin said he was kind of amazed that, you know, that we're going this far. You know, I just know with this group of brothers, and I'm really happy that, you know, I know that they were exceptional soldiers. And, you know, when they had to step into the leadership position, they did so, you know, and they played their part, you know, and it wasn't nothing behind it. And that's why we really clicked together. So, you know, none of this stuff is really, you know, impressive. We're just really trying to do something because all of us had the capability to do something else that can be a way, you know, a benefit in a different way. I won't say much more benefit, but, you know, as far as taking care of our own selves, yeah, I mean, if we go chase $1, I mean, forget about it. You won't get it, you know. That's not hard, you know, but doing this kind of stuff it's a different kind of job, and it brings different types of rewards. And, you know, at this stage in our lives, this is what we're looking for, you know, and we don't mind the struggle, you know, but, you know, it does help when we have the proper people supporting us who believe in us and trusting us. That means so much, you know, and that's why we're always willing to go the extra step, the extra mile, and put our lives on the line, you know. And you might not, you know, I mean, we're in social media, you know, but we already had a track record of service before, you know, when Facebook was still in infancy, you know, we already had this stuff, you know, we already were in service. So, you know, this is just an, you know, extension to what we're doing. And now we're able to reach more people through this platform. So we do appreciate you all. And we'll just keep at it. And, you know, because I was reading about, you know, even some of the ops for Dr. King, you know, like somebody like Thurgood Marshall didn't like him. You know, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. didn't like Dr. King, you know, and they were vocal about it, you know what I mean? So, and that happens, you know, you get people who are seemingly on your side or should be on your side, or you get more done or more effectiveness if you're together, but, you know, people have their own agendas, you know, and that's cool, but we don't let it stop what we're doing, you know, and this is why we kind of push the effort, you know, for many of us online. Probably the biggest thing that we can do, or the easiest thing, which would be the biggest thing, is to give, you know, until we get to a position where, you know, we built up some, you know, stuff, then we've taken care of some issues, and then we have put something together that's just going to keep moving forward for all of us, you know, as a collective. you know. So I don't know if that's my video, or I hear a couple people saying they're freezing up.
How does our video look? A couple of people are saying that it's freezing or breaking up.
Was the sound clear when I was talking?
It's clear to me. Video looked good to me too.
Yeah, let me know about yay or nay in the comments. How was it?
Your wife says it's clear.
Okay. Does my mic sound nice? Check one.
Khadijah says it's clear. Hassan Ali says it's clear. Samira says it's clear. Imadi says it's clear.
Okay. So, in the words of Mike Tyson in his anger moment, if you don't like it, turn off your station. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, mashallah. Yeah, so alhamdulillah. So we'll keep at it, and one of the things that I do admire about Imam Amin and Imam Naeem is that neither one of us, or neither one of them, me included, we don't have problems with followership, even in leadership positions. With us three, it's clear. Imam Amin is our leader. And we yield to him. And it's not an issue. It's not an ego thing. And that's how we roll. And we consult each other. We have differences, views. We have things that we might not agree with. But at the end of the day, when we put this broadcast on, we coming out as united front. For the people that we serve. And very along the way, inshallah, we pick up some other people who support us and know us and understand what we're trying to do, and just know us from past work. So, and we can never miss a moment to say thank you. To say thank you all for tuning in, dealing with our shenanigans sometimes. Our ignorance. Our being in sometimes complete nigger mode. And sometimes we do have something that is beneficial, but we'll keep doing it, inshallah. And we do hope that it's something for you all, inshallah. All right. So yeah, go ahead, Imam Naeem.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to mention with regards to our subject matter, Martin Luther King, and we kind of like we talking about it like right now, really, but like one of the things that I noticed, and again, it's the same thing could be said with Malcolm X, is that when the real enemies or the real ops recognize who your hater is, that hater or that person who doesn't like you for whatever reason, they open themselves up to be used against you. And I think we should keep that in mind. Like we have to, like Malcolm said, learn to keep our differences in the closet. That doesn't mean not discuss it, but discuss it privately amongst us, right? Like a lot of times when we have differences, we go out and center stage in front of everybody. I want everybody to know that I don't like this dude. And you got his phone number sitting right there in your phone, but you couldn't call him about it, right? This is how we are. But we don't. A lot of times we don't think about the ripple effect. And even when it comes like now, like being a rapper is like deadly now, right? But I was watching some documentaries with some people that was, connected with Tupac. And like I love documentaries, right? And so usually like even though Biggie and Tupac, that's not really my generation. My generation is before that, but I'm still interested in, all that kind of stuff. And I watched enough information about them to know that when Tupac first started going on the, openly, dissing Biggie, even before Hit 'Em Up came out, right? That it was sort of it was based on a misunderstanding, but you know, when he got a little bit clarity about what really happened and what didn't happen, you know, he's not the type of person to say, I said that because I thought this, but I was wrong, so I take it back. He kind of like rolled with it in order to capitalize off of it for record sales and stuff like that. And it it once Once you turn on that faucet, you can't cut it off. In other words, once you put that energy out there, people ain't reading the fine print. People don't care nothing about chronology. People like, man, it's beef, it's on, right? And, and so a lot of times we don't understand that type of thing, and we think that thing is only with regards to rap or or the streets, but it's the same thing even in our circle, in our environment, in the Islamic environment. A lot of our people ain't reading no fine print. We ain't looking at what date he said that and what the context that he said it in. All they listen is beef. We don't like them cats. We don't like them either. A lot of people don't care nothing, and I'm talking about Muslims now. A lot of Muslims don't care nothing about our blood, our property, and our honor being sacred, and you know, raising a weapon to a believer is like disbelief, and all of these hadith, talking about the sacred or the sanctity of Muslims, and the importance of brotherhood and not attacking each other. Most of us don't care nothing about that. I need an enemy, and he's it. And so we have to be careful about the type of energy that we put out there, because our real enemy and our ultimate real enemy is the shaitan, right? But our real enemy will use that stuff and to destroy all of us. And so we have to be careful about that. Back, finish dealing with the police, man. You told him it wasn't you.
No, it wasn't the police. I get passionate and my voice is loud. It carries. I have that speaker. Sometimes I think I'm in the masjid and my neighbors be like, hey, you. Hey, everybody got a job. My job is my voice. But alhamdulillah. So where was I at?
Everybody got a job to play.
Yeah,
Got a role.
so my job is to have a strong voice that can reach across the street.
Yeah, you were having some scatterbrained thoughts before you left, so please continue.
But I think that's an important aspect, that we all realize our function. What's my part? What's my job? Right? Right? What's my part? Right? What is my function? What I have to do to make this work? And I just think all of us have to do our part. You know what I mean? Have to do our part. And I think it's too many, as you said, Imam Naeem, you indicated that most people are not involved. So like we'll look at the numbers that come and we still every week have to push for money, right? To do the work when everyone know that we're trying to do the work. Everyone has to engage, right? And I think this is important if we're going to have long-term success, right? If we're going to have long-term success, everybody got to do their part, right? And you got to see in your mind that I have a role to play, and you can't be afraid to play your role, right? Each and every one of us, us as imams, we know what it means to give all you got. Y'all know that feeling. All of us need to feel that feeling, who are serious about the work. It's not going to look the same for everyone, but everyone should feel, feel the pinch, right? And when we get like that as a community, we'll start to build. Samir was on a roll, huh?
That's what I was about to say. Why you whispering, man? Put some bass in your voice.
The jar has a right. I got to give my neighbors a break. It's late. Don't worry. I'll be in the masjid screaming at the top of my lungs. No, go ahead. All right, I'm done.
Man, Amin live around like good, clean neighbors. You don't live around.
Hey, I live around a bunch of white folks, so
That's exactly good clean neighbors.
black man disturbing a bunch of white folks with all this talk don't go over well.
Is everything all right over there?
Imam talking about all that ghetto stuff, living in the suburbs. You know, we do have a noise ordinance. What's the say that? Ordinance or whatever they call it. Ordinance around here. Can't make too much noise. Hey pal, you're not in the ghetto.
I'm gonna come through your block with my system pumping. Yo, man, what's up? Come on out. Assalamu alaikum. No, I'm saying like for Philly. Assalamu alaikum.
You call the cops around you around
Man,
here.
home.
We did get a question. Let me see. I put in the box. I think everyone feels their view is the most correct and their method is best. Therefore, to protect our interests and constituency, we will attack other Muslim groups if need be, just to keep the momentum on our side right, wrong, or different. Any of the imams have input on this comment?
I believe that could be the case for some people. I wouldn't say that's for everybody. Some people, you know what I mean, that is their case. And I believe you 100%. But then others, I don't think that's their objective. I mean, so it depends on people. I don't think that's a blanket to put on everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Some people they that's how they got to get paid off what you made. I mean, it happens. You know what I mean? And that's when you just got to disregard it. You know, like you look at like a big beef with 50 Cent and Ja Rule back in the day. You know, it wasn't that 50 Cent was, it wasn't that Ja Rule wasn't like a pushover. It's just 50 Cent marketed well because he know that singing rap style, he couldn't do it unless he had to put Ja Rule down. Because if he would have entered into that arena, because they said Ja Rule was like the what they call him. I forgot what they called him, but he was like what was the famous singer? Had a deep voice. I can't remember. Cedric the Entertainer said it one time. I can't remember, but he's that person for the hip hop generation. What's that singer's name with the deep voice?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember neither. But he had that on lock. That singing raps. Them singing rap songs and stuff like that. And then next thing you know, 50 came with this saying he got shot 9 times and it was only like 3, and lying, what I mean? He gets a fraud. And then he comes singing with the, that kind of stuff. So he had to move the top guy out the way, so he can get in, because otherwise he wouldn't have got it off. No, it wasn't Barry White. No, it wasn't none of that. It was one of them award shows, and when Cedric brought him out, when Ja Rule was on top, he said he's the something of the hip hop thing. I can't remember the name. Forget about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but a lot of people in the Muslim community kind of like feel that way because, I don't know where it comes from individually, but like, you gave a good example. Like, since rap started, the best way to get on real quick is to go at the top guy, right? That's the best way to get your buzz to come at him. So a lot of people, they carry that stuff into Islam, and they put our Islamic principles, in the back burner. And we don't think about, what is Allah's opinion of me by, attacking this other person, this other Muslim. We ain't thinking about that. Samira said, "Let me help you, Imam Awesome. Gotta watch these jokers."
but I also think sometimes, and sometimes we want that we're all going to get along, and that's not real, right? So sometimes there's going to be legitimate challenges to people's thought, and I think that's healthy, right? Disagreement, so long as it is not destructive, is okay. That keeps people on their toes and doing the right thing. So I don't think that every disagreement is I don't think every disagreement is bad. I'll give you an example. I was explaining this to somebody the other day. There's an individual from among Al Wahhabiyya, right, who's doing good. I don't even watch his stuff, but he's successful at what he does. I just disagree with the Wahhabi thing. I don't disagree with what he does himself. I just disagree with Wahhabi doctrine. So someone may say that when you're talking about Wahhabi doctrine, that you're actually challenging him and it has nothing to do with him at all, right? But what he does, actually, he may be successful in that. And that's a good thing, right? But spreading Wahhabi doctrine is something different. And someone may interpret that as jealousy when it has nothing to do with jealousy at all. So that could go the other way towards us or others for that matter.
This is why we always say it's not about personalities. Like a lot of times people, when we talk about doctrine and what's good to believe, what's not good to believe, people always like name names. Like, no, it's not about the names. It's not, people want it to be about the names. Sometimes they want the drama. They say, no, we just want to know who to avoid. Well, if you learn the principles, if you learn, what's proper, what's not proper, whoever fit the shoe, then he'll wear it. You don't need to know the names.
It was Louis Armstrong.
I'd have never guessed that.
That's what Cedric the Entertainer say. He's the Louis Armstrong of the hip hop world. He had that gravelly kind of, that Louis Armstrong song, "What a Wonderful World."
No, I don't know that song.
Okay. Yeah. Well.
Hey, what does "we want the tea" mean? I'm lost. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting too old. What that mean?
We want the tea?
Yeah.
They want the news. They want the juicy information.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my wife said I'm delayed. You try to say I'm mentally, I'll talk to you offline, honey.
Oh, by the way, since both of y'all wives are present, is it possible I can spend the night over your house today? Nobody gonna kill me.
We love you, but now you hurt the group.
So we'll make room for you. We'll leave the light on for you.
Sometimes I get mixed up between Masjid Muhammad and my house. I done lost it.
My wife said the Masjid is always open. Yeah, ahlan wa sahlan.
I think we only at 3:33.
All right, we overtime, and we're gonna need some of this money for a new building, a new place of transmission, right?
By the way, I heard you laughing, Samira. Don't crack it up. I heard her. I literally heard her.
All right, so we at the number. Let's try to get our mark. Come on, Imam Faheem, you good at begging. Let's get it done.
So I get at begging.
Hey,
it's only begging when black people do it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we got a question. What it says? Assalamu alaikum. Can we not use the example of the Prophet's alliance with Muslims and non-Muslims? I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, but while we waiting on the answer for
Oh,
that,
I mean, I think he meant by that is we should use that, right, as well. I think that's
okay.
like saying, is that true? We can use his alliance with non-Muslims, that we should have the same thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that ties us right into support. You know, so let's start giving. Let's meet our goal. We mentioned earlier we try to get in the first hour, and we mentioned last week that as we go on and we building this trust up, and we know that we're working for each other, like this should be a given. This should be a given. Because we're not begging. We're just encouraging our people to do what they should be doing. What's the easiest part? You know what I'm saying? Um, let's finish it off. We got $330, $170 to go at minimum. So
We need
before we leave out of here,
$170.
huh?
No, I was just saying we need $170. Who's gonna help us out?
$170. So who's our Harry Belafonte for tonight?
And
Who's
if
covering
any of
the
y'all
movement?
got some serious Ahle Sunnah pride, don't allow Malika to hit us off with that begging stuff again.
Who gonna put the cause on their back tonight? And finish us off. That's where we at now. Because this is something that's building really good when we're doing this. And this shows commitment. And we just ask you to match the commitment that we're going to give you. Online and offline. We do have some. We do deal with people offline. We've got some requests. We've dealt with some issues, and we're just going to keep working. So please match our effort and our consistency. And giving the money, inshallah. Money is needed to get this stuff done. And bigger than that, we should always be thinking, no matter what, that this is going on your scale. This is going on your scale of good deeds. This is stuff that's going to be working for you, and that's going to show up, and you don't know how it's going to be. You know what I mean? So let's make sure we try to meet this quota, inshallah. How much time we got before we meet it? What, about 2 minutes?
Today in our class, we're talking about the Sam'iyat, those matters of the hereafter. And today we were talking about al-Hashr, when we're going to be ushered and gathered on the plane, on the day of judgment, the way for judgment. And one of the things we learned in our class is that, the righteous and the awliya, they're going to be ushered forth. They're going to be riding on mounts. And we learned that people with very little good deeds, they're going to be walking. And the disbelievers, they're going to be dragged on their faces, right? So everybody's not going to be driven to the plane for judgment the same way. And so this is how you can take what you've learned and put it into practice. This is how you can add to your good deeds that will help you on the day of judgment. You won't have to be, walking barefooted. You can be riding in style by accumulating good deeds on the day of judgment. See, a lot of times when we talk about these good deeds and giving for the sake of Allah and helping the Muslims and helping humanity and all of these things, we forget that there's a reward for that in the next life. It's not only about this life. There's a reward for it in the next life. And so you find the more we study and the more that we get into learning about the next life, you're going to see that our actions or lack thereof have repercussions in the next life. And so don't be any of these people who are bankrupt. Especially a lot of us, we are doing things that could be taken away from the good deeds that we've already done. So, we should always be looking for a way to increase our amount of good deeds. Look at what Imam Amin mentioned earlier. He mentioned about us going to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And you've seen a few people, if you look in the comments, said that it was a huge benefit for us going and helping and supporting the believers in New Mexico, right? Imam Amin mentioned that the airline tickets, the hotels, and what enabled us to get over there is the money that y'all been donating. So all the good that happened in Albuquerque, New Mexico is not restricted to the brothers and sisters in New Mexico. It's not restricted to us who went over there. Y'all get some of those good deeds too. Y'all putting that money in. Y'all get some of the rewards for that, and you have to be mindful of this. Think about how many people benefited. Think about how many people are more serious about Islam, have embraced Islam, have changed their lives for the better, and it happened by all of us coming together. And part of that is you donating, you giving your little $10, your $100, your $50, or whatever that you can afford. It's going to help you in this life, and it's going to help you in the next life. So don't look at it like I'm losing money, because the one who gives sadaqah never loses money. Sadaqah does not decrease your wealth. Sadaqah is an investment. Sadaqah is an investment. If you think about, you want to flip a house, where you spend money to buy the house, you don't look at it like you losing money, that you wasting money. You look at it as an investment, because you brought the house, you're going to Airbnb it, you're going to put some tenants in it. It's an investment. You expect to get more for it than you put into it. Likewise, when you give to this cause, you're going to get more for it than you put into it. So we have to change the way we think, and remember that the reward for it is not only in this life, it's in the next life.
Can I tackle this question real quick, Imam? All right. So the question is, respectfully, my question is, why when one group disagrees with another, why is it that the other group is labeled as enemies or haters rather than someone who simply disagrees with your method or approach? Because we know us as a people. We know us. When it's a disagreement with your method or approach, then that's what it is. And there's certain etiquettes that goes with it, like how you going to approach the person about what, listen, man, I like what you're doing, but blah, maybe you should do it like that. That's some etiquette, or you call somebody up and be like, yo, what you mean by that? But when you take another platform and you saying certain things, or you take an initiative, like we have somebody that doesn't even attend these sessions, make a whole so-called refutation on us on the Black Imams Roundtable. That's hateration. Like, let's call it what it is. Because if we disagree, we get behind closed doors and we can discuss it, or we meet up face to face. But when you're doing certain stuff, there's nothing else you can call it. And not necessarily enemies. I wouldn't use enemies, but don't, we know us, man. We know us. And people don't act like we're not who we are. You know what I mean? There's no way, now say if I we mention something here, and then next thing we got a platform where we're catering to a certain segment of Muslims, because somebody else is doing it, and we never contact. That's hateration, man. Like, that's jealousy. All that stuff is behind it. We just gotta, everybody doing their lane. If everybody's doing the work and make it sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the success take care of itself. It's just like, I don't know, I just like to use a hustling analogy. I don't care what they getting money around the corner or down the street. Right here where I'm at is what I'm taking care of. You know what I mean? Let them get their money down the street. I don't care about that. I'm getting my money right here. And if I get my money here, you get your money there, they get theirs around the corner, everybody getting money. But what happens? Turn it to, to the what's the dude's name? Nicky Barnes. Then Frank Lewis guy comes see him. Come on, Nikki. Everybody's happy. The Italians, everybody but you, Nikki. Why you ain't happy, Nikki? The stuff, man, you can step on it a couple times. Why ain't you happy, Nikki? Be happy, Nikki. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to add to that. Like, if it's a difference of opinion or a disagreement, then it shouldn't be any underhanded stuff going on. If you got a difference of opinion, then we can address the difference of opinion. But it's rarely ever that, right? It's rarely ever that. It's usually sometimes in some cases it's open attacks. Why is it open attacks if there's just a disagreement? Like Imam Faheem said, we could talk it out. Maybe both positions right, or maybe we're wrong. All right, show us where we're wrong with factual information. And then a lot of times it'd be stuff going on the under that a lot of y'all don't see. It'd be under stuff going on. And the example I always give, so not to like indicate anybody directly, I mentioned this a whole bunch of times, but it's something that happened to my wife. You know, my wife Sabira, she has a loud voice, right? So there's one girl that she used to work with.
She's like Imam Amin.
Right? So uh this one girl kept messing with her at work and kept, saying little slick stuff. And she just tolerated it and she dealt with it. Then one day she couldn't take it anymore. And she screamed on her, right? And so the supervisor coming over, oh, Samira, is everything okay? It's not the way to act in a work environment, blah, 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 blah. Right? Right. The supervisor and the people around didn't they didn't see all the little under stuff that person was doing. They didn't see what led to that outburst. And a lot of times, yeah, you got a real big mouth, Samira. Right. A lot of times that's the way it be. A lot of times, like on these platforms and stuff like that. A lot of times people be doing like little stuff on the under, right? Let me go to Imam Faheem's man and uh attack, Imam Faheem. Or let me go to Imam Naeem's man and attack Imam Amin. And let me go to all of them in their faces and act like we cool, but then go back to doing some other under stuff and still attacking them. It'd be that type of stuff going on. And so sometimes you may hear outbreak, but you didn't witness the under stuff and the undermining. And they say, oh, we just have a difference of opinion. Oh, well, if it's a difference of opinion, why can we just have a conversation? Why all the under stuff? And that's the stuff that people don't be hearing. They think that just people just say, hey, I disagree with you guys. Can we discuss this in an intelligent fashion? It never happens like that. It always happens somebody attack you or somebody talk trash or he said that she said, and then it keep coming to you. And you be like, oh, did you say it? No, I ain't say it. And then you go to the other person, yeah, I said that, right? So all that kind of stuff, so that's it. It's never simple like that. And very few people say, I have a difference of opinion, let's talk about it, right? That's very rare.
I think with sometimes I think we should keep in mind that when you're doing a da'wah or when you're working for any good cause, you're always going to have opposition. It goes with the turf. The Prophet ﷺ had opposition. So don't expect that you're going to go through this type of work and not have opposition. And a lot of times the opposition is going to come from those who you think are with you, as we talked about. People who's supposed to be with you, who say we're down, who say I'm with you, they're going to be your biggest opponents sometimes. And as Al Sharpton said, that's because their dreams is not big enough to fit in their brains. So you got a plane that can't fit on their runway. So you can't land with them. Right? So some people, they want you to do what they're doing. But what they're doing is too small for what you have in your mind. So that happens a lot of times. So don't think it's always bad. Now, let me take this real quick because sometimes I think things are being said without being said. You know what's easy for to do, Abu Muhammad? Just say what you're trying to say. I don't know. That's my version. Sometimes we're saying things without saying it. That makes it more confusion. Don't try to figure out what you're saying. Just say it, right? Just say it with manners. But here's the thing I think, right? I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that you got to realize that there are enemies to the truth, right? That's a part of life. There are people who are enemies to the truth. Like they got people that says, listen, we're all Ahl Sunnah. And that sounds great. So why don't we all be Ahl Sunnah? But sometimes I'm Ahl Sunnah, but I want my ball and I'm going to keep my ball to myself and I don't want nobody else to play with me. Sometimes that happens. So the onlooker may say, hey, well, they're divided. Nah, we wasn't never together. We're not divided. We wasn't never together in the first place. Your perception is that, but we never was together in the first place. So I think that's something you should keep in mind, that there's going to be differences of opinion. And some of those differences of opinion are not difference of opinion. They just, I don't want you to succeed. It's not a difference of opinion. I don't like what you're doing. It happens. It's a part of, as I say, it's a part of the mission. But what I do agree with you is that we shouldn't spend time focusing on those type of people. You got to leave them where they're at. You got to leave them where they're at. Some people, they don't want to fly. They want to be permanently grounded. That's your problem. I'm trying to fly. See you. Right? That's what we can't do. We can't stop our work because you don't want to travel. Then stay where you at. See you. I'm gone.
You know when I know what I do when I don't like what somebody do on their platform?
You don't watch them.
I don't go on their platform.
Basically.
If everybody else did the same thing, we'd be good.
Or the other thing, you could get so busy doing your work, you don't have time to go on a platform. How about that one? So if you're worrying about me, why don't you get so busy that you're so busy you don't got time to watch me? Or Naeem or Faheem, if you didn't like what we're saying, why don't you go do your own stuff? It's a free, open platform. Go do your stuff. Why are you wasting your time worrying about what we're doing? Go do what you should be doing. Because trust me, we're not wasting our time worrying about what you're doing. We're doing what we need to do. And if we all did that and we all was on the same mission, we'll be good.
And in the words of an angry Mike Tyson, I say what I want to say. If you don't like it, turn off your station.
Okay, we can close out. Inshallah.
I did the grand opening.
Imam Naeem, I'm going to leave you that because I got to be
Grand
quiet.
closing.
Give us one good scream before we get out of here, man.
And if y'all don't see me in the morning, please call 911 and inform them that I've been assaulted.
Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah, we reached our goal tonight. We raised $785. We surpassed our goal. Alhamdulillah. May Allah put barakah in your wealth. May Allah make it that you don't see a decrease in your wealth. May Allah put a lot of blessings in your wealth. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you to see the good of all that you gave in this life as well as the next. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a lot of benefit from our insights into the life and or legacy of Martin Luther King. We pray that Allah put barakah in our coming together. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite our hearts. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت واستغفرك وأتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.